Hi, I'm Jennifer Fox with Music Educator Resources, and today is Music Teacher Tip number 26. Thanks for joining me. So if you caught Music Teacher Tip number 25, I talked about the importance of saying no and when to recognize the need to say no. So I wanted to switch gears. I couldn't talk about saying no without talking about saying yes, right? So today's teacher tip is all about the importance and the value of saying yes. When we say yes, we open the doors for possibilities that we otherwise wouldn't have. We open the doors to opportunities that we otherwise might not have. Um, we do things, we're able to do things that if we had said no, we would never done. So I want you to think for a moment, what are doors that have opened for you because you have said yes? Were there doors that opened that in your personal life? Were there doors that opened? Were they doors that opened in your work life, in your teaching life, in your educational life? The list goes on and on. So doors can be opened just by simply saying yes. And then the next one, and this is the one I think about quite a lot, is get out of your comfort zone. When you say yes, you're kind of forced into getting out of that comfort zone. And trust me, I like my comfort zone. I am an introvert by nature. And so I have to remind myself, Jennifer, you need to just step out, get out of your comfort zone, and this is going to help you. It'll help you grow, and which leads into the next value is it creates stretching moments. I would not be where I am today or who I am today if it wasn't for me getting out of my comfort zone and getting creating those stretching moments for me. And I know we can all say the same. When I was younger, a teenager, my mom would make me do hard things, as most of our parents do, right? It makes them a good parent. Gets us out and doing things that we just don't want to do. One of those things was she was a choir director, and she gave me the job to call all the choir members and remind them that there was choir practice the next day. And oh my goodness, at the time, this is the worst thing you could possibly ask me. Like I mentioned, I'm an introvert, and even just picking up the phone would cause me all sorts of anxiety, like stress, and just I would be in tears. I would have to write out a script word for word, exactly what I was going to say. So when they picked up, I would introduce myself and say exactly what I needed to say and hang up the phone as soon as possible. But if it wasn't for that moment of getting out of my stretching zone, or I should say moments, because it was week after week after week that I would have to do this, and it did not ever get easier, let me tell you. I hated every single week of it. But if it wasn't for that, later on when I needed a job, I wouldn't have gotten a job as a receptionist. And talk about, whoa, I have to pick up the phone constantly when you're a receptionist. And so that ended up being a huge blessing for me, because at the time I needed a job, and I needed an early morning job so I can go home and be with my little babies and be able to teach in the afternoon. And so I woke up at 4:30 in the morning and was able to be this early morning receptionist. And I don't think I could have done that had I not had that experience of stepping out of my comfort zone and stretching myself. So saying yes that's a huge value right there. And then saying yes, another value is to be able to create relationships. I have so many wonderful relationships now that I wouldn't have if it wasn't for me saying yes to opportunities. And even when they were things that I wasn't sure I could do. So the relationships that I've made um, are definitely a huge value in saying yes. And then when we say yes, we learn from our successes. We learn, oh, hey, I was able to do that. I was able to learn from that and be successful in that. And that's a huge benefit right there. But then we also, um, at the same time, we learn from our mistakes. And there's a value, huge, huge value in learning from our mistakes. So an example is when we say yes to something and we realize we shouldn't have, or we got ourselves into too much and we should have said no. We learn we should have said no next time. If I'm asked this again, or if something similar comes up at this time of year where it's absolutely crazy and I know better to say yes, then I'll know better to say yes, and I'll say no that time. So it definitely is, we learn from our mistakes when we say yes at times as well. And that's okay. That's good, because learning from our mistakes is always a good thing as long as we learn from them, right? And then we learn about ourselves when we say yes. There are so many things that I've learned about myself. I've learned that I could do things that are not comfortable for me, and I could become better because of it. Um, Again, that's just huge. So we learn a lot about ourselves when we say yes. And we learn about others. This is one of my favorites too, is just learning about you and other people I come in contact with. And I learn what I like, I learn what I don't like. I learn what some ideas of maybe things I want to do because of others, or I want to see because of others, that they're doing and seeing places that I never would have thought of otherwise. So definitely learn from others. And then the value of saying yes is you become more confident in yourself. And that's another huge value, just gaining that confidence. Sometimes when we say yes, we say it, but we're like, what on earth did I just do? I don't know how to do this, or I'm not sure if I can handle that responsibility. That's huge. I'm not qualified to do that. Don't we say that a lot? I'm not qualified. Well, what makes us qualified? I think sometimes just by doing makes us qualified. And as long as we step it up and do our best, right? And then last, saying yes help us gain experience that we might not otherwise have. For sure, we wouldn't gain the experience if we had said no. So when we say yes, we are gaining experience, and many times valuable experience that will help us in the future, and sometimes the future that we don't expect. So in my case, I didn't expect to get a job when I was a teenager and made those phone calls to choir members, reminding them about practice. I didn't expect to have a job as a receptionist, having to make phone calls at the time. If you would have told me that, I'd been like, yeah, right. So you just never know what the future holds. And it's always a good thing to have that experience behind you when you say yes. So I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for saying yes, especially those things that took me out of my comfort zone. So I want you to remember that sometimes the answer is no, and then sometimes the answer is yes. But don't hold back a yes just because you're afraid of the yes. If it's something that will stretch you and that will benefit you, and help you become even better, then go for it. Say yes. And I love this quote. I mentioned this in my blog post, but I'm going to mention it again. It's from Jonathan Lockwood Huey. He says, say no to the demands of the world. Say yes to the longings of your heart. And sometimes we have to really listen to those longings of the heart, because sometimes they take a little bit of those promptings that say, okay, you can do this. Yes, say yes. All right, I hope this teacher tip was helpful for you, and I look forward to catching you in the next one. If you have a teacher tip that you would love to share with me, please contact me. I'd love to hear all about it and share it for you. Or if you have a teacher tip that you would like to hear from me, again, feel free to contact me and we'll see what we can do. All right. Happy teaching. Bye.